While the late Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu was known as a fervent freedom fighter, a man who loved God, but he also had an amazing sense of humour. His ability to laugh at himself at times made him real to many around him, but he was also critical of developments around the world where human rights were violated. Let's talk about this now with Thembisa Fakude, who's a senior researcher at Africa-Asia Dialogues. Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. The Arch wasn't just a figure in politics, but when you also look at the work that he's done, he also gave critical political direction at the height of the uprisings in Soweto and was often at the forefront of even some of the funerals of the apartheid victims.
Yes, he was. He was a leader, and he will be sorely missed. And as you say, he was very involved and aware of his surroundings and quite vocal in terms of his politics. But for me, what stands out is his global leadership as the member of the elder group, which was started by him amongst others. He led quite a very strong group of very experienced individuals and encouraged interventions in various parts of the world, including, of course, Palestine. And recently, as recent as 2016, he condemned both Tony Blair and George Bush and called upon the world to flog them to The Hague for leading the entire world to go and create a war in Iraq under the false pretense that the weapons of mass destruction were in that country.
And when you then, look at the work that he continued to do with the elders, one would have expected him at the time to really have retired and focusing on his own life and his children. But this is someone who continued to fight for democracy. And this, a lot of people have said, that has shown just what kind of a selfless leader he truly was.
Yes, he was. I mean, he never retired. Even in retirement, he came out to deal with our own internal problems, including that statement he made against Jacob Zuma. So he was a permanent activist, and I think that's what the legacy of Archbishop Desmond Tutu will remain. The one who constantly struggled for the betterment of humanity. But there's another side of him. He was a joker. He was a lovely man who enjoyed to laugh and crack jokes now and then.
And that, of course, made him very real to those around him, especially because sometimes you find that the joke is on him and he wouldn't even be, afraid to narrate it. And also, when you even think about some of the beautiful memories that he shared with his wife, Mama Leah.
Oh, yes, he was a very funny man. When you remember that anecdote when he criticized Mandela's shirts, and Mandela retorted by saying it's quite funny coming from the man who wears dresses. So that's the kind of a person he was. We'll remember him as an activist. We'll remember him as a freedom fighter. But most importantly, we'll remember him as a person who enjoyed a good joke and who made us comfortable whenever we were around him. I had a chance as a journalist to be in his company, and he was always very jolly and ensuring that he made journalists comfortable, and he answered every single question, most of the time with an extreme charm. And so he would be remembered fondly by many people, and he will also be remembered quite strongly by those who suffered in South Africa, particularly the black masses of South Africa, but even the white people of South Africa learned a lot from Bishop Tutu, as he used to say that the oppression was not only against the black people, but also the white people of this country were oppressed because of the ignorance. So we'll remember him fondly, and I'm hoping that this week we'll all join in celebrating his life, the various functions and gatherings that are organized, and hopefully all South Africans will partake in those functions.
And even when you look at what you're saying, I mean, the fact that he was able to cut across through various races and even white people who have learned a lot from him. One of the things, though, that was even extremely, uncomfortable for many people, and even some of those who worked closely with him at the TRC, because they were baying for blood at the time, was how he himself was really looking at even finding the humanity of some of those who had committed the most atrocious acts. And that, other people are saying, it really sets him apart, because when people were baying for blood, he became a true man of God and looked for forgiveness to try and help South Africa navigate through a very difficult time.
Yes, he did. And not only the TRC, but we must remember that his intervention in terms of trying to quell violence and the killing of people started way before the TRC. You remember there's one incident in Duduza, for example, where one man was about to be lynched and killed by a mob. And Bishop Tutu intervened and saved that guy's life. So he was a very brave person, but at the same time, he understood the importance of reconciliation. And his liberation theology pushed him to that direction, that people must reconcile. But I think the most important thing about him was he remains a true non-racialist. And I think that's why he's celebrated world over. He didn't see color. He understood that the shortcomings of being human go across the color line, they go across the racial line. And he articulated that on many occasions. I mean, I was quite touched when the prince of I think it was Prince, I can't remember his name, Prince Andrew or something, who visited him now recently with the baby Archie, and
Prince Harry.
Prince Harry, sorry, and he was quite happy to see a child, and he welcomed the couple amidst very serious controversy where they were coming from, which was the UK at the time. And that was very humbling. And, for a person of his stature to be so friendly with that couple and to be so loving to that child, the pictures that were shown depicted him as a very loving old man, a granny. And so he'll be remembered fondly for all those kind of things that he's continued to do for humanity and his contributions.
And while there was that part of his life as well that really extended itself to a lot of people, there was also a part of his legacy that, has really even been put in the spotlight again, after his passing. And this is, of course, the fact that as a freedom fighter, fighting with all the activists, fighting for the freedom of South Africa, he's found himself in the twilight of his years having to speak out against some of the very activists and really have strong words for the governing party, even around not allowing his friend, the Dalai Lama, to come here, and also some of the decisions that he was quite unhappy about.
Oh yes, he was quite vocal, particularly against the last administration under the leadership of Jacob Zuma. He was very vocal, but he started with Thabo Mbeki criticizing his stance on HIV/AIDS and also his politics preference in Zimbabwe. So he remained very vocal, but across the globe and outside South Africa, he was very vocal, for example, on issues of Palestine and the Middle East. So he was an all-rounder and a person who was quite aware of injustices throughout the world. And I think that's the kind of lesson that he has left for many of us, that we should be conscious of our surroundings, not necessarily our national surroundings, but global surroundings. We all should be conscious of the injustices that are taking place around the world, and we should condemn them and voice our dissatisfaction whenever we see those kind of injustices. So this is the legacy that the ARC has left, and I'm sure many people will pick up from where he left and continue with the struggle of trying to ensure that there's justice peace and harmony throughout the world.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. That was Thembisa Fakude, a senior researcher at Africa-Asia Dialogues.